Here we go, Locked On 49ers Live. We're talking 2020 NFL Draft. They say it takes 3 years to truly evaluate a draft class, so we're going back to the 2020 NFL Draft. Look back, grading, very interesting picks for this pivotal draft class for the San Francisco 49ers coming up right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This is a small draft class in 2020, Croc. And I know we go so deep into the draft, and you and I talked a lot about the 2020 NFL Draft. You weren't co-hosting the podcast with me yet, but I know I had you on as a guest, and we broke down all the receivers in that class, right? Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, and Brandon Aiyuk was one of those. Henry Ruggs in that class. And it's amazing how different careers go and the trajectory of all these guys just after 3 NFL seasons. And 3 years is a good amount of time. That's plenty of time. A couple of years, you have a really good idea. And 3 years, I think they're whoever they are that say that about waiting 3 years, it's a good amount of time. So I think we know exactly who these players are for the most part. There's still a lot left to be written, but man, a really good NFL draft class for the San Francisco 49ers. And I think a really pivotal class for multiple players, multiple positions here for the San Francisco 49ers.
I think looking at it from the receiver standpoint is very interesting because after 3 years, we know that Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in the NFL. And that was a guy who I really liked, but I mean, never in a million years I think like, hey, he's going to be the best receiver in the NFL in 3 years and just shatter records. Like, really? Like, nah, no way. So didn't see that coming, but that was cool to see. And Brandon Aiyuk, a guy that I'm pretty sure we'll talk about as well. Between him, you have T. Higgins from that class, Michael Pittman, some guys that are like legit wide receiver twos in the NFL. Hey, you and I talked about Jerry Jeudy a little while ago and how it's like his numbers are actually better than what you kind of perceived them at in your head. Like right now, it feels like Judy's an afterthought, but actually he's been pretty solid and looking for that like big breakout year. So definitely overall a really talented class where it almost feels like you couldn't really miss as much. CeeDee Lamb in that class.
Yeah, it's a huge draft class for wide receivers. Niners got one of them in the first round. First, before we go wide receiver, though, Croc, let's start with the first pick the 49ers did make. And this was a lot of movement. This was a class where the 49ers, and I'm pretty sure John Lynch traded every single pick they originally had. They didn't draft a single time at their original spot in this draft class. And they ended up trading a lot of picks away. It was actually just a complete opposite draft class of what we just saw in 2023. The Niners had no early picks and a whole bunch of late picks. In this class, they only drafted 5 guys and had 2 first-round picks and then traded away some of those later picks and ended up with a really small draft class. And I want to talk about some undrafted free agents as well in this class. But it started with Javon Kinlaw. After moving down just one spot, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers moved up with the Niners. They got Tristan Wirfs at 13. At the time, Croc, when that happened, we did not know that Joe Staley was going to retire. I cannot believe the 49ers didn't just stick at 13 and draft Tristan Wirfs, knowing that Joe Staley was going to retire and get their offensive tackle, and not knowing yet that they were going to be able to trade for Trent Williams, even though there was a lot of talks there. But they probably felt confident about Trent Williams, moved down that one spot, and ended up taking defensive tackle Javon Kinlaw, number 14 overall in the middle of round 1 in 2020.
Yeah, that was really wild. And I feel like you can't start to talk about that draft class and the Javon Kinlaw pick without talking about how the 49ers got that original 13th overall pick in the first place, trading away DeForest Buckner, how really big that was. A guy who I would have never expected to be traded because he exemplified everything that you want a football player to be, a leader to be, a 49er player to be, and didn't miss games, always healthy. You trade him, and it made sense from a money standpoint, and I think that's what they were trying to do, trying to, manage the financial ramifications of things down the line. But gosh, that was a big trade with Buckner moving on. So then it's like, okay, whatever. You get Javon Kinlaw. And I think the one thing that we've known from that now, especially what we learned really kind of in the process, but now we see how impactful it is that knee. We knew that there was something going on with his knee. They brushed it off, said it's not that big of a deal. But clearly, I think that has truly impacted how we view that pick, because I do think that Javon Kinlaw, just in general, is a very talented player. Huge. He has quickness. He has strength. But he hasn't really been able to put that on full display because he's been hampered with injuries tending to that injury he came into the NFL with. Mm-hmm. So that's going to go down probably, it looks like right now, as a big miss for the 49ers. And I think getting Javon Hargraves is them saying, yeah, we 100% missed on this, but not because of, I don't think, the lack of talent. I think it was them not truly knowing the extent of that knee injury and how that really would impact him moving forward.
I think it's also impacted how they've done business since then. They haven't messed around with any of their star players. So the Buckner thing, I think, if you really look at what the 49ers are doing right now, it feels like, okay, if you're a star player, we're going to do everything we can to bring you in, keep you here, pay you. But it's the other guys that they're not going to pay, and they're going to let you walk. They're going to collect comp picks. And maybe this informed part of that. The other thing that changed after this was taking chances on players with injury histories. They've really drafted a lot of really healthy players that don't miss time in the college level. And so I think those are two things that the 49ers probably learned from this draft class in the Javon Kinlaw pick. And obviously there's the reason why they drafted him. He, came out, he's just a massive human being, super powerful, shows some explosive ability, not quite a quick twitch interior guy. He's a mauler. He's a power player. Javon Kinlaw is inside, and he's listed at 6'5", 319. He's closer to 6'6", and was up around 340 in college, and I think he's gotten down to 290s. It's 299. I think he showed up at camp last year, and from reports at OTAs, he might be even a little slimmer this year. So it's not lack of effort, and it's not lack of wanting to be good for Javon Kinlaw. It's just his opportunity to stay on the field has been the big problem for him. And obviously it's a huge miss up to this point and a huge disappointment to draft a first-round defensive lineman, and through 3 seasons, he's got 1.5 career sacks.
Yeah, and it's not even just during the season, during OTAs, things like that. Man, the preparation as well, having to always recover from some type of knee scoping or knee injury, them trying to get that right and having to rehab. And instead of really kind of putting that time into being in Hawaii with Buckner and Armstead and the guys, and with Michael Bennett, really working on your craft and hands and all those things, I think he's kind of missed out on a lot of that aspect of his development, which clearly we see the impact of that on the field.
Yeah, big what if there. Would Kinlaw have turned out to be a much better player, because his play on the field too has been inconsistent even when he's healthy enough to play. And so would those inconsistencies have gone away with a healthier player that would have more opportunity to work on his craft more? And so we don't know. And so at this point, his availability is an F, and his play on the field has been pretty mediocre as well, even when he is healthy enough to play. And again, it must be said that this was not like in fact, I think I have a tweet saved somewhere, because I was out on Kinlaw pre-draft, and I was really locked into this 2020 draft class. We did a ton of work on this class, and I tweeted, quote, "I'm all the way out on Javon Kinlaw, multiple knee injuries in college, and the interior D-line isn't the place to be spending this draft pick." So I didn't like the Kinlaw pick from the start. I know why the 49ers liked him, but again, these injuries were common knowledge. If I knew about him, team medical staffs and teams knew about him. So what did those MRIs look like? I don't know, but it's not like the risk wasn't there and just flashing red light for the 49ers when they made that pick.
And for me, it wasn't even, and I didn't like the pick, and that was my initial tweet, but it wasn't about the knee injuries or anything that really had to do with Kinlaw. I didn't like the kind of the player for player trade, even though one guy costs less money, but going from Buckner to a guy that has to replace that caliber of player, I was like, why wouldn't you just slide Armstead inside and have him play 3-tech? And then you still at that time had D Ford and other guys to play on the edge. So for me, it's just like, it just didn't make sense. It's like, okay, you kept Armstead, cool. Well, put him at 3-tech. He could play very well there. And now he plays his best ball there at the 3-tech. Do that. And then draft a Tristan Wirfs or a CeeDee Lamb. And again, I love that they got Aiyuk, but at that time with where they were picking that, it felt like a CeeDee Lamb or a Tristan Wirfs or a Jerry Jeudy, not Javon Kinlaw to replace Buckner. So that was one thing that I didn't necessarily care for.
So a big whiff so far to this point for the Javon Kinlaw draft pick at number 14 overall. And one of the reasons I didn't like it, you just mentioned there, wide receiver. But the 49ers found themselves a wide receiver a little bit later. Brandon Aiyuk, rounds 5 through 7, getting big-time contributors now for the San Francisco 49ers. We'll look at the day 3 picks and interesting undrafted free agents as well from the 2020 draft. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And why not go to the place where there are the most job seekers that already exist online? I've got a LinkedIn profile. You got a LinkedIn profile. Everyone's already on LinkedIn. So go there, post your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile that spreads the word that you're hiring. And then find the right focus of those right candidates to interview and eventually hire with simple tools like screening questions, making it easy to focus on just the right candidates with just the right skills. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Brandon Aiyuk. The San Francisco 49ers had the 31st pick in the draft, right? 2020 draft. That was coming off the 2019 season. Disappointing how the season ended, but such a great season for the 49ers. And they were aggressive. They were trading for Trent Williams. They were drafting a defensive tackle to replace DeForest Buckner, moving on from Buckner. They said no to Tom Brady. They brought back Jimmy G. They're trying to run it back. And they said, we need one more playmaker on the offensive side of the ball just after drafting Deebo Samuel the year before. They didn't take that wide receiver at 14. What did they do? They traded up from 31 to 25 to draft Brandon Aiyuk. And Brandon Aiyuk has been really good for the San Francisco 49ers and has really outplayed Jerry Jeudy, one of the guys that and you look at their numbers and they're not far off at all. Like their numbers are pretty darn close, which is kind of surprising. And Jerry Jeudy has missed some time in the NFL. But I think most 49ers fans would say, man, I'm really glad the way that worked out, not taking Jeudy at 14. Now, CeeDee Lamb could be a different story. Justin Jefferson could absolutely be a different story. But they love Brandon Aiyuk. They moved up. They got him at pick 25, and he's been a really good player for them.
He has been very good. And I think, unfortunately for him, I don't think he's been able to really spread his wings and fly the way I believe he truly can. It was interesting evaluating him as a prospect. His quarterback, Jaden Daniels, was still kind of youthful at that time, and Daniels is still playing. He's at LSU now, but you could see where, man, I think there's like more with this Aiyuk guy, and he had an electric ability. There was one play I remember just seeing his athleticism stand out, jumping over a defender, like he caught a slant, jumped over a guy, and I'm like, man, he kind of got some nice athleticism. And, he wasn't one of the big dogs in that class, but he definitely was someone that was kind of in that 6 wide receiver spot, which I think is around the place he went in the sense of draft order at the receiver position. So 49ers got a terrific receiver who I really like his game. A couple of things I'm still waiting to see if he'll improve on. And you said we know more about these guys 3 years later. Maybe he'll never be a terrific contested catch guy, but being able to separate, he's improved on that each year at the NFL level, and you're seeing more of that. I would like to see him be a little bit better after the catch. I've seen it a couple times where it's like, boom, there it is. But I think it kind of comes and goes. and maybe it has to do something with maybe the way the 49ers utilize him as opposed to other receivers. But terrific ability, terrific athleticism. And I think as far as hitting on the pick, they definitely got that right with Brandon Aiyuk.
194 catches, 2,589 yards, and 18 touchdowns receiving so far in 3 years. And remember, he kind of hit that doghouse in year 2 to start as well and came out of that. And so Brandon Aiyuk's been awesome for the 49ers. I didn't love the trade up at the time. Looking back, totally fine with a trade up to go get a player who's been as good. And when you get a hit, it doesn't matter what you traded. And that's what we're learning about the Trey Lance thing. When you make a big trade, if the player is a hit, nobody's going to care what you gave up. If the player's a miss, nobody's ever going to forget, and everyone's going to remind you every single day what you traded to go get a player if it's not a hit. This was a hit with Brandon Aiyuk. Nobody's going to care about the 49ers moving up. I thought it was unnecessary at the time, and I wasn't sure if I thought Aiyuk was maybe in a different tier. I actually had Aiyuk rated 30 overall in that class, so right around where the 49ers were drafting, so it's not egregious drafting him at 25 or anything. I was like, stay at 31, maybe he's still there. It might not have been there. There was still some, Michael Pittman and T. Higgins and some other players you drafted at the end of round 1. But obviously the way it's gone, love Aiyuk as a 49er. He's made good, and we'll see what he gets paid because he's got a big paycheck coming when you hit and you're a wide receiver. That's just what's going to happen. Fantastic. And he'll pale into comparison for, statistics with some other first round wide receivers. CeeDee Lamb's got 70 more catches and 1,000 more yards almost. And Justin Jefferson's got 140 more catches and 2,000 more yards, 2,300 more yards. Justin Jefferson in 3 years, 324 catches, almost 5,000 yards in 3 years, 48, 25 receiving touchdowns, man. Unbelievable. And so if you take Justin Jefferson out, it makes everybody else in that draft class look better, but they just pale in comparison numbers wise to Justin Jefferson, even though they're all hits. And even Jerry Jeudy doesn't have bad numbers in 3 years as well.
I actually, there was like this fan thing I joined, and they asked me to pick for the 49ers at pick 13. I actually traded back to pick 18 and took Justin Jefferson, and I got killed in the chat for that. They did not like it. The fans did not like Justin Jefferson. He's a glorified slot. Obviously, he's been terrific and much more than just a slot, even though he does win there as well, but clearly can win on the outside. The question I have is Michael Pittman. He hasn't had the best quarterback situation at all, right? Like even the 49ers, you look at their situation, it's like, well, okay, you went from Trey to Jimmy to Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy played extremely well. And, it's a weird quarterback situation for the 49ers in the sense of just having that one guy. But the quarterbacks have played well. You look at the Indianapolis Colts, and, Matt Ryan wasn't good. Then they went with the Sellinger guy or whatever his name was from Texas, not good. And they're all kind of random stuff. But I wanted to ask you, you mentioned a couple of guys that were right there available at 30, right? So if let's say you didn't trade up, you got Aiyuk there, you got Michael Pittman Jr., you got T. Higgins. I think you'd be more than okay with taking one of those guys as well, right? I think the bigger question would be how would they fit in Kyle's offense, because he doesn't like tall guys.
he doesn't like guys that win the contested catches down the field. And it's funny because the things you mentioned about Aiyuk, that's the best part of T. Higgins' game. But he's not, catch it short, run after catch guy. He can make some plays. So very different. A much better quarterback play for T. Higgins than Michael Pittman for sure. I don't think Pittman was a great fit for the 49ers. I know you're a big Pittman guy. Yeah. And man, it's pretty crazy to see some of the numbers that Higgins has put up, because, Aiyuk's argument is that, man, I'm the number 2 wide receiver in this offense. I'm like the number 3, number 4 option, depending on the game sometimes. And T. Higgins has kind of been similar for him, and he still put up 3,000 yards in 3 seasons. It's pretty wild. He's done some things, and Pittman's numbers are pretty good too. 227 catches for 2,500 yards. So
yeah, and 1,000-yard season.
Higgins, where he wins down the field, is I think would help open up the 49ers offense, but Kyle Shanahan's not looking for that guy. So it's almost like we got to get those guys out of our head, because I don't know if there's ever going to be one of those guys that Kyle Shanahan spends on, unless he just kind of shows up and it's like, oh, we got this undrafted free agent guy that wins a job.
Or you got Javon Jennings, who is not either one of those guys that we just mentioned, Pittman and T. Higgins, but hey, man, he plays a role as kind of the others. He's kind of in that category between him and and Ray McLeod. But it's like, okay, and we're going to get to Javon Jennings, but matter of fact, I'll save it because we are going to get to Javon Jennings from this class.
Yeah, let's get to that day 3 portion of this draft class next. Obviously, a miss for Kinlaw so far in his career, multiple reasons why, and a hit on Brandon Aiyuk in the first round, and still unwritten for both those guys. They can both play their best football in their 4th seasons coming up here and beyond in their careers. But I think we've learned a lot about both of those players and who they are in the NFL. Some interesting ones and a starter now from day 3 and another wide receiver that has been a contributor for the San Francisco 49ers. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Bird Dogs make you look good. That's number one. That's the most important thing when you're looking for clothes. You're looking for pants. You're looking for stretch khaki shorts. You want to look good, but you want to feel good in them as well, and that's where Bird Dogs come in. Bird Dogs stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you that truly sculpted look. But they fit great. They fit way better than anything. Lululemon, whatever it is, wherever shorts you were thinking about getting, these fit way better because regular shorts are made of stiff, restricting cotton. Bird Dogs fixed all those issues by inventing cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches so you can get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. And Bird Dogs uses anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long, no matter what you're doing. So you can live hard, work hard, play hard, go to work in your Bird Dogs pants, and then you could go out and party in them as well. You can go to the golf course in them. I always wear my Bird Dog pants to the golf course. I love my Bird Dog shorts. You can get them with a liner, get them without a liner. My Bird Dog shorts, I go to a barbecue, I can jump in the pool if I want to. With those khakis, you go anywhere you want, you look right and you feel right. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL and enter promo code LockedOnNFL for a free Yeti style tumbler with your order of Bird Dogs. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNFL or promo code LockedOnNFL for a free Yeti style tumbler. You won't want to take off your Bird Dogs, we promise you. I love hearing where people are from and how people found the show. Niner Gaming says, "What's up, guys? Caught you live at the gym getting my Crocker on." Croc, in fact, today we're recording this on Monday, July 10th. If I'm not mistaken, the bulk portion of your workout journey starts today, right? So you were slim down, Crocky. You've been skinny, Crocky, getting down to 186 or something like that at almost 6'2". So that's pretty slender. And now you're going to start putting on some mass.
Yep. And the clean bulk, because some people, they do dirty bulking, they eat bad. I'm raising my calories about 600 plus calories, but with all good, cooked food. So we're going to see how this works. I'm kind of experimenting on myself. When you're young, you don't got to worry about this type of stuff. But as I get older, I have to be more pinpoint with how I do things.
Oh, dude, the older you get, the more pinpoint you have to be with everything, especially your health and your weight. That's absolutely for sure. So the 49ers didn't have any picks until after that round 1 area all the way until round number 5. So no second, no third, no fourth. I believe that fourth was part of the Trent Williams trade that year. So they took day 2 off, came back day 3 swinging, and they drafted 3 guys. Colton McKivitz in the 5th. They drafted Charlie Warner, tight end, in the 6th, and Javon Jennings in the 7th. Let's start with Colton McKivitz because what a comeback story for his NFL career. He was drafted in the 5th round. He was an under-athletic. Look at his athletic profile was awful, Croc, across the board. And when you want to play offensive tackle in the NFL, you're looking for these guys that are long and athletic and can move and can jump and because they're freaks and they have to block the freaks of nature on the defensive side of the ball. This guy wasn't that. He's big, but he did not have any of the athleticism and the feet and the workout numbers that you want from a starting offensive tackle or even an NFL offensive tackle. But he had that gold helmet for the 49ers for reasons because he's smart and tough. And I think that's what has given him an opportunity now to be the starting right tackle for the 49ers going into 2023. After his second training camp, Croc, he was waived from the team and nobody picked him up and they brought him back and he ended up making the team again. And then now they liked him so much that toughness, those smarts, despite not being the most athletic guy in the world, he's strong. He's got an anchor. And he might not get out in the wide zone and block as well as McGlinchey, but he might not be there might not be any drop off and maybe even an improvement in pass protection because he locks on and he's strong and he's going to play his butt off every down. And that's what Colton McKivitz is. And after 3 years, I don't think we know enough about Colton McKivitz. He's gotten some good PFF grades sometimes. He's had some good games. He's had some other times where he didn't look amazing. So after most guys, we know what they are after 3 years. Colton McKivitz, I think we're still learning. But, man, getting a guy who's going to start at offensive tackle in the 5th round, that's huge value already as we stand here today.
Yeah, just the fact that they believe that he's potentially a starter, right? And didn't look to replace him with a 3rd-round tackle or a free agent tackle. They're saying, hey, we believe in this guy and we like the steps that he's been taking to become a guy that we have a lot of confidence in. So I'd say that regardless of not seeing a whole lot of them, the confidence that they have, and they've done a terrific job of identifying guys that they feel are ready to play. I think that proves to be a big vote of confidence for McKivitz. So, I mean, from that standpoint, I'm all in, and it's definitely a win in the sense of the draft stock.
No doubt. I can't wait to see what that looks like. And I think for some 49ers fans, and even for us, Croc, it almost feels like a little bit of an experiment right now at offensive tackle for the 49ers. Like, are you guys sure this is what we're going to do? They didn't draft anybody to try to come in and compete. They feel a lot stronger about it, obviously, than everybody else in the world does. If you look at rankings from national pundits about the 49ers offensive line, people are worried about it. So very interested to see what that looks like with Colton McKivitz and how that offensive line comes together this year. But as a 5th round pick right now, huge value, huge hit if you're getting a guy that you believe can start games for you, at the end of his rookie contract. So like that a lot, especially at a premium position like offensive tackle. And we'll see how well that goes for the 49ers and Colton McKivitz. It's the most undecided grade here yet as far as what Colton McKivitz is. Charlie Warner, they kind of went the George Kittle route with the Charlie Warner pick in the 6th round of 2020 because they got a guy who was tough and blocked well in college and never got the ball thrown his way, had some athletic ability, not George Kittle's athletic ability, but some athleticism to where that you could say, maybe this is a similar thing where we're going to coach him up and he's going to block his butt off. And then we've got an athlete that we can throw the ball to more and he's going to be a better pro than a college player. So far, hasn't really worked out for Charlie Warner. And after drafting 2 tight ends in 2023, he's going to be fighting for his spot on the roster, period, this year.
I would say that it has worked out from the standpoint of he's still on the team and he's on the roster and he's kind of been out dueling some of the other guys. I mean, how do we feel about Ross Dwelley at that time? Like, oh man, that's 100% your tight end too. And I think around that time, Jordan, what's his name?
Jordan Matthews?
No, not Jordan Matthews. Why am I blinking on his name? The tight end came over from Washington.
Reed. Yeah, Jordan Reed.
Yeah, Jordan Reed. Yeah. He was kind of around there, but even then, Charlie Warner's like, nah, man, like I'm going to make this team. I'm going to make this roster. So the fact that he's still there and they haven't been able to just find someone that can just outright beat him out, I think that says a lot. Like when you get a guy this late, everybody's not going to be a star. But if you have just some kind of role for a guy and he's able to hang around for several years, and really all these guys, Kinlaw maybe by default, but I think that says a lot about just what he's been to them. Not a star, definitely not George Kittle, but someone who contributes to some extent.
I'm looking for Charlie Warner's snap counts here in games played. He's played 48 games for the 49ers. So he's been around and he only got 8 catches for 88 yards, right? So, he hasn't become any sort of a receiving weapon for the 49ers at all. And I don't know if he's even that amazing of a blocker, but for a 6th round pick just to stay for 4 years is a win of a pick. You're not getting stars, deep into day 3 very often. And he's played more games than 1st round pick Javon Kinlaw by a lot. He's played twice as many games for the 49ers as Javon Kinlaw has. So, so that's, it's a solid pick. He's been a contributor. He might not be around for very much longer, but how about this one? Jawan Jennings, home run of a selection in the 7th round, the 3rd pick in the 7th round, number 217 overall. The 49ers draft a wide receiver who's become their number 3 guy on the outside now behind Debo and Aiyuk, and has 59 catches for 698 yards and 6 touchdowns. But I feel like when he makes a catch, it's more impactful than other guys because it seems like it's always for a first down.
It is always for a first down. And week 1 against Chicago Bears, we saw him on the slot fade. Trey Lance threw to him, and he kind of stretched the field. We haven't seen a whole lot of that. And for a guy who ran a 4.7 and it doesn't play a whole lot faster than that to win vertically, I think again just kind of brings a different element to what the 49ers have currently, being able to win down the field, as well as what he does, as essentially kind of a small tight end or move tight end, where he kind of plays running those outs. I think it was Tariq Woolen who kind of poked fun at him a little bit and was like, "Man, we ain't worried about you. You're a tight end. Like all you gotta do is run stick route outs or something." I was like, "Well, they're kind of right. They're like a majority of his routes are kind of in that range, but he does a terrific job of winning on it. And again, carving out a role for yourself as a 7th round pick, I think that's tremendous. So overall, man, kind of
yeah, I mean, it's an A draft pick for Javon Jennings in the 7th round to get this much production out of a 7th round wide receiver. We'll see what Ronnie Bell can do. Someone says Ronnie Bell's going to be our Keenan Allen. I don't know about that one. We'll see with Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell's going to have to win a roster spot first.
Well, not just that. Keenan Allen, he was a guy at Cal. He was the man. And then he had that hamstring injury, which made him run a slow 40 at his little private workout. And he slipped to the 3rd round because of that. But he wasn't a 3rd round prospect, let alone the 7th round guy.
Shadow 49er, by the way, Keenan Allen. I was all over that one. I was like, oh, that's easy value right there. Give me that 4.7 all day because that dude gets open. He is slippery, and he's still doing it to this day.
Yeah.
So overall, I mean, I want to talk about some undrafted free agents really quick. They did sign JaMychal Hasty, who had some nice roles for the 49ers after the draft that year. And then they just got some free draft picks too, because they signed linebacker Jonas Griffith as an undrafted free agent in that class, and then traded him immediately to the Denver Broncos and got a 7th and a 6th back. Or they traded Jonas Jennings a 7th and then got a 6th and a 6th. They got a free 6th round pick for an undrafted free agent. So I love that value. So that's fantastic there. They got a little extra draft pick, and I'm not sure what that pick ended up being for the 49ers. 2021 6th round. Anyway, let us know if you know who that player is. I'm blanking off the top of my head. But so overall, it's a really good draft class. The Kinlaw thing, when the first pick doesn't hit, usually that makes for a poor draft class for most teams. But the 49ers came back with another hit in the 1st round and have gotten 3 contributors on day 3 and utilized one of their picks to go trade for Trent Williams, got an extra pick from an undrafted free agent, got some value after the draft as well. So overall, it's a really good draft class for the 49ers, and probably one I like a lot better today than I did right after it happened, even though Kinlaw has been a complete miss.
It looks like that 6th round pick or some form of it, because it's kind of hard to tell exactly, 49ers moved around a little bit, but Elijah Mitchell.
Oh, wow. If you got a free Elijah Mitchell for that as well. And as 49ers gang 916 points out in the chat, Griffith was starting linebacker too. So yeah, Niners are good at finding those linebackers and those running backs. That's for sure.
Yeah, if anything, they're gonna find some good guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's what's gonna happen, right? And we'll see what happens with D Winters and all that. But they do such a great job finding these guys mid to late rounds. And they're like, but we're going to spend the first on one of these guys, even though we haven't addressed this guy or this position or that, but we're going to go get a linebacker 1st round. Doesn't it feel like they always do that, like that type of move? It's like, why would you do that? That was the thing with the running backs, where it's like, you keep getting these guys undrafted or 6th round, and man, they're very productive. It's like, yeah, but Trey Sermon, got to have him. Trade up for him. Well, but TDP gotta have. It's like, why you keep doing
that? Oh man, that's fantastic stuff. All right, what do you guys think? What's the grade for the 2020 draft now? Looking back, I'd say I'd give it a B+. Can't be A with the Kinlaw thing, how it's gone so far. But man, overall, it was a really good class, and they've gotten a ton of contributors from this class, despite the lack of selections too. So great job by the 49ers in 2020, and we'll see. It's not done yet for Javon Kinlaw.
And you low-key have to include Trent Williams in that class, because on top of acquiring him, you were able to, extend him as well. So I mean,
you had to pay him. He's almost like they gave up a 4th for the right to sign him as a free agent. So it's kind of like you can't go too far in that direction.
But you cap him. And he's been the best in the league.
How about this? Did the 49ers win or lose the Buckner trade?
Ooh. Well, they were able to get Trent Williams with one of those picks, right? because we're kind of like you traded a pick for a player, but then you were able to move back one spot because you had that pick. That gave you that extra pick that I want to say helped you get Trent Williams.
God, there's so many trades. I can't keep track of them, but
I think the Trent Williams, I want to say it was a 5th and a 3rd. It was like a 5th that year and then a 3rd the next year.
Oh no, he's a 3rd and then a 4th. Or no, there was a 4th involved, I thought, for the Trent Williams, but the Buckner trade was just a 1st, I think.
The Buckner was a 1st, but then they moved back one spot.
Oh, right. So they got it when they moved back. Okay, yeah.
And then they got the extra pick, and I think that helped them get Trent Williams. So
right. Yeah. Okay.
You know, hey, Kinlaw, Trent Williams, and or both. I mean,
and Eric Armstead and Jimmy Ward, they were able to re-sign those guys because they traded away Buckner.
Give me Buckner.
It doesn't look as bad when you say, "Oh man, they traded Buckner for Kinlaw." That looks terrible. But in reality, it's not that bad. And they had a really nice draft class in 2000.
Yeah, they did. They did. Really, that is to have that few selections and those guys contributing. We're talking about in year the heading into their 4th year, and those guys are a lot of them like have projected roles on your team. I think that's a slam dunk. We don't know what Kinlaw's is, but outside of him, like the next guys, they all have a role, and you landed Trent Williams. Slam dunk. Great job, John Lynch.
We're talking DBs tomorrow. Croc went into the lab a little bit and is breaking down some film, looking at some Steve Wilkes, looking at some Miles Hartsfield, looking at some Diamador Lenore. So that and a whole lot more coming up for you daily here on San Francisco 49ers. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen. Shout out to all the everydayers. Make sure you're subscribed up on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast.
Subscribe to this video.